All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode to the Art to the J podcast, where we interview your everyday entrepreneur, business owner, and people in Southeast Texas. If you guys like what we're doing over here, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. It sure helps the channel grow. And if you want to be what I call it, a guest, go ahead and hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, or even on a comment with it. But with that being said, today we have a special guest. We have Michael Laidler. How you doing?
You got
Michael?
it. You man, you crushed it. We talked about it. I was like, boy, I said, I think he's gonna get it. And I saw you. I was like, is he gonna get it? You got it. You nailed it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, first try too, with his name. So how you doing, Michael?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm excited to be here, and I hope people do like, subscribe, and hit those notification buttons on your podcast, because what I've seen so far in the 30 plus episodes that you put out, I'm impressed.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm just a beginner, as we all pretty much is. And, I'm still figuring it out. But it does help if you guys could like, comment, and subscribe, because that way I could get more guests in and people could just know. And then when I reach out to them, they'll be more tempted to come.
Yes. And sometimes I think it's overrated when we think we're just going to naturally be able to like market ourselves. I know we talked about that before. So we need the help of everybody, because sometimes it's like, they'll figure out. No, social media has its moments, but social media is so crowded that we need the help of viewers. We need people that like it. We need people that are watching to say, hey, you know what? This podcast is actually something that's pretty cool in the Golden Triangle area.
Yeah.
So we need their help. And if you're not thinking about that, it's like, well, what can I do to make this area better? Well, like, subscribe, and hit that notification button, and it'll go a far way.
Yeah, exactly. Because what I call it at the end, that's why I'm doing this right here. Kind of wanted to help out the community, where they get to know all the entrepreneurs here and people, small business. You know what I mean? So that way, hey, I want to do business with them because I've seen them on this podcast and I like how they are. As persons,
Well, yeah, I know, and I agree. One thing that I've had to learn, especially as an entrepreneur coming up, is that even though your work is hard, or let me change that. Even though you're a hard worker, if you don't market yourself correctly, you're never going to be as successful as you can be. A lot of times, I know I've been in government work for so long that just showing up to work was enough. But as an entrepreneur, you have to take that extra step, because there's no natural marketing. There's no like people are just going to see me walking through Jay Wilson's or Papa Do's and say, oh man, that guy's really good at what he does. No, you have to go out of your way and market yourself if you want that success to come. And I think sometimes we have to take that step back to realize how important it is to kind of get ourselves to that level.
Yeah. And then also at the same time, what I call it podcasting, it's something, it's more like almost like a hobby. If you have to enjoy it if you're gonna start on it, because you're not gonna make money, especially maybe the first 2 or 3 years, if you even last that long.
I think there's a stat out there that most, I don't know if it's 50%, 60%, but 50 or 60% of podcasts usually are either out their first year or their first 100 episodes, because people don't realize how hard all of this takes. Like, even just your amazing setup, it takes time. Like, it's not like you just woke up and you had microphones, you had lighting, you had your cool logo. Like, people doesn't like that just doesn't come. Yeah. Like, you had to paint this room, put these signs up. And sometimes I think that part isn't recognized. And once people start doing it, they don't realize how hard it is to maintain a podcast.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's especially starting up. I mean, if you're somebody already known and you start a podcast, you're easily gonna get subscribers and stuff. And on YouTube, I think you have to get like 1,000 subscribers before you get monetized.
10,000 subscribers.
Oh, 10,000?
And then 400 watch hours.
Oh, wow. I got a long way, guys.
Well, that's why they're watching, because
exactly.
They're thinking, hey, like, how can we get this to 10,000? Yeah. And that's the minimum. And obviously, even when you get to those subscribers and you get to those watch hour requirements, you still got to have people still watching the podcast in order to get that monetization. So if you're trying to make money off of it, it's that extra step that you have to do continuously. Because once again, it doesn't just happen overnight. And even if we've even seen athletes and people that are considered celebrities not do as well as they should, because they just assume that their name alone would create sustainnability.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They'll get the first hype. They'll get 1 million viewers out the gate because they're, let's say LeBron James. That's probably not a great example, but LeBron James would naturally get 1 million, but will he sustain that? That's the other part of podcasting, the continuation side to it.
Yeah, you have to, bring the, good guests or whatever material you bring out, the content.
Correct.
You got to make sure you're able to sustain the people to actually want to hear you.
Correct.
And
You're right.
Hopefully I could do that. Or we could do that, you know? But that's why I wanted to bring, who is Michael? You know, because I found you through Facebook. That's how I get a lot of my guests, through Facebook. So everybody check your spam and request messages, because a lot of times they go over there. So just in case, I may have hit you up to see if you want to be a guest. So just check that out, right?
Actually, no, that's what happened to mine. Mine went to, on Facebook Messenger, mine went to the part called like message request.
Yes.
And it didn't pop up in my box right away.
Yep.
And I just happened to look at it and I was like, oh crap, someone messaged me. And then I looked and I was like, oh, then I started looking at your show and I was like, oh, he's a real person.
Yeah.
So for anybody, if you have reached out to him and they're like, oh, maybe I'm wondering why he hasn't reached out, you may have already been in their message box already and it just hasn't opened up.
Yeah, exactly. But so who is Michael anyways?
So for me, in 2024, first and foremost, I'm a father.
Okay.
I'm a son. I'm a brother. I have family. I love them dearly. And everything I do is driven by how to create success for them once I'm not here anymore. Now, trust me, I want to be here another 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
But the reality is that we're not always going to be here. And for me, it's how do I create an environment? How can I create generational wealth for my family? Mm-hmm. And that has led me up to this point to having 20 years of government service, which has been specifically in the law enforcement area, but also being a small business owner. And how that all came about was, as a leader, we're supposed to communicate. Yeah. Like we have meetings we talked about, yes. You have briefings. Sometimes if you're at the highest level of your organization, you're going to have press releases, whatever that looks like. And when I entered my first official leadership role, I told myself, hey, I need to learn how to speak. I need to learn how to communicate effectively, because anybody can talk, but to be effective at what you do is a whole other category. That's not easy. I mean, I've seen leaders that think they know how to communicate and they're just up there talking.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm sitting there, I'm getting sleepy, or I'm kind of like about to fall out of my chair and they're just talking. For me, I wanted to elevate myself. I wanted to be that communicator that really took people to the next level when they heard me. So for me, although I had the government service and I was successful in that area, I was like, you know what? I'm in a leadership role. What can I do to get better? And one thing that I've done even in Beaumont, Golden Triangle area, is I joined something called Toastmasters back in 2016 when I was living in Louisiana. And from that point forward, it kind of catapulted me into being a more effective speaker. So 2016, I did Toastmasters. 2017, I joined the John Maxwell team. Later that year in 2017, I actually opened my business, which is Michael Laidler Unlimited. And from that point forward, just over the last 7 to 8 years now, I've just been fine-tuning my speaking business, because I realized that part of getting a message out there is actually knowing how to deliver it correctly.
Yeah.
And when you're not able to do that, you lose some of that quality that you're looking for. So for me, when I look at who Michael Laidler is, it starts off with the foundation of being a father, a son, and a brother. And then I look at why I'm doing what I do. Yeah. And part of that why, or to get to that why, I have to communicate.
Yeah.
And nowadays in my business, I talk a lot about stress management, talk about resilience, talk about leadership, all the things that have impacted me throughout my life. And I'm like, you know what? Now I want to see other people succeed like I have.
Yeah, and that's a great program right there, because like he's talking about generational wealth for your kids or whatever. But then also too, they see like how hard you're working as well too. Then they see that dad's a hard worker, and it's gonna translate to them when they get older and they have kids.
Yeah, and nobody will give you anything in this life, is what I realize.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're not out there each and every day pushing yourself, each and every day trying to take yourself to the next level, each and every day just trying to learn something different, you're going to find yourself behind. I can tell you, when it comes to owning a business, being an entrepreneur, I'm out there hustling every day. And that person that's not hustling, I'm trying to out-hustle them, because I realize that there's no better day than to start now. Mm-hmm. And if you're not doing that, you're going to always find yourself behind. So just being out there pushing and hustling and trying to figure out how to just create that generational wealth any way possible is what I'm typically trying to hit.
Yeah. And when you started your journey of doing the keynotes and stuff like mm-hmm. that, and you say you did a Toastmasters, mm-hmm. which I didn't know they had here.
Oh, yeah. There's a few clubs. There's a club that meets every other Monday. There used to be a club that meet every other Tuesday that I was part of, but then we just couldn't keep the membership up. And then there's also a third club that I want to say is an online club. But if you go to just Toastmasters.org, you could type in your zip code and it'll tell you any of the Toastmaster clubs around you.
So it's like a big organization, and they have countless in the United States.
Okay. No. worldwide.
Oh, worldwide.
Like it's not the United States. It's anywhere in the world you can. And I don't know what I don't know if other countries have zip codes or postal codes. I've been to every country, but there's ways you can find a club anywhere. And literally, when I say there's clubs here in America, there's clubs in South America, Central America, Asia. Well, Asia continent. Let's say China, Japan, UK, Kenya. There's literally Toastmasters clubs everywhere.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Might need to try to help me out a little bit. Because one thing, a lot of people are not comfortable talking to like a lot of people. You know what I mean? Maybe 2 or 3 people like that they know. But from there, if it's a big group of people, they're going to just lose track, be scared. You know what I mean? How they say the saying that people who read what do you call it? Not the obituary, but when somebody passes away, they read their...
I think it's obituary. It's something else. It's called, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I try to go to funerals if I can help it.
Yeah. So I call it people who read those statements rather be in a coffin than reading it because they're so uncomfortable.
Yeah. And it's honestly because I'm an introvert by nature, and usually when people hear and see and they see what I do, like through social media or when I'm on stage, they're like, "There's no way," and I'm like, "No, I can spend every Friday, Saturday night at home chilling. I don't have to go out places, but." I know one as a business owner, once again, part of that hustle is that you have to be out there. But I know there's certain things I have to do as an extrovert. But I don't mind being at home chilling. I don't mind being within my place that I have built around me and just being there. But people usually see me traveling and going all these places. They're like, "Oh, you're just an extrovert trying to hide." I'm like, "No, I'm more an introvert that's pushing myself into extrovert tendencies." And one thing I learned with Toastmasters, which is very cool. It helped me out of that. It helped me get out of that comfort zone because it forced me to speak in front of people. Now, Toastmasters, which is really nice about it, is it's not a lot of people. So anywhere on average, you might be speaking in front of 6 to 12 people. That's not speaking in front of 100 people, but it gives you those reps. And what I tell people, there's really no difference from speaking in front of 6 to 12 people to 1,000 people. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to see all 1,000 people. You may be able to see the first 50 to 100 that's in front of you. Everybody else is just a blur.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that. They're like, "Well, I never thought about that." I was like, can you see that person that's in the 7th row out of even 100 people? Can you really see their facial expression?
Yeah.
Like, depends on where you're standing, especially if you're standing with something that has light. And they're like, "Well, no." I said, "Then why are you worried about them?"
Yeah.
Like why are you so nervous that they're gonna do something? Most people, kind of like you said with the coffin analogy,
Eulogy.
Eulogy. Yes, eulogy. Yeah, see, we were gonna figure it out. Well, you were gonna figure it out. I couldn't figure. I had no clue. But what I tell people, think about it. If you ever been to any presentation, whether it's a conference, a training, a workshop, 9 times out of 10, you're happier to be sitting in the seat versus standing up and speaking. So when you're standing up there speaking, most people don't want to come do what you're doing. They want to sit there and listen to what you have to say. You take that opportunity to go out there and deliver a message. Most people aren't judging you for being up there. And really, when it comes to public speaking, that's the real fear, is that people are worried about not what they're saying, but how they're going to be judged based on the audience. The audience is just like we are when we're in the audience. They're just like, "Thank goodness he's up there and not me."
It's not me.
Yeah, and people don't realize that.
Yeah. Well, I call it, how were you when you first started doing the Toastmasters? Were you scared?
Of course. I'm nervous every time I speak. Every time.
Every time.
Even till today.
Even now.
Even now. I'm nervous because, and people are like, "Oh, you don't look nervous." Oh, that's why. I was like, what you don't realize is even now, like, I always wear a shirt under my main shirt because I'm always sweating.
Yeah.
So when I start speaking, whether it's, I do virtual keynotes and I will sweat. It is hilarious. And it's hilarious because I know they can't see it. But there's actually, you know what? A couple of weeks ago, I wore I was doing a keynote virtual, and I wore a button-down shirt, and I forgot to wear an undershirt. 45 minutes into it, I could see the sweat stains on my shirt.
Yeah.
But I wasn't nervous. It's just I know how my body reacts.
Yeah.
So in that case, I tell myself I prepare for what I'm coming up to. So no matter what, I'm always fearful. I'm not fearful of what people are going to say. I'm fearful that I'm not going to give them enough of the information that they need.
Yeah.
Because if they're spending their time with me, I find my time valuable and I find their time valuable. So for me, it's like, okay, I want to make sure I'm giving them the best message possible. So that's the fear I have. If I'm going to deliver enough to them, whether it's 15 minutes, an hour, 8 hours, whatever that looks like, Am I going to give them enough? So that's why I always have a fear. And my fear doesn't stop me from speaking. It doesn't create any like loss of thoughts. It doesn't create any so's, hesitation. It doesn't do that. But I just have a fear that I may not always deliver what I need to. Thus, I practice a lot. I go over my materials. I'm always updating what I look up because I want to make sure that I'm giving the best material possible. So I always have a fear every time I speak because I want to make sure that I'm giving the best message possible to the people that are listening to me.
Yeah, with so much information you have, I guess you have to have some type of bullet points and go over all the material, make sure you don't miss anything out.
Yeah. And I practice all the time. Like I remember I spoke with the black business professionals of Southeast Texas back in August, and it was only 10 minutes, but I was nervous. I was nervous leading up to it. I was nervous on stage, but it wasn't seen like that. But to me, I was just nervous once again because I wanted to make sure I gave them the right information that they needed within that 10-minute window. Because once again, our time's valuable. Everybody is going to die one day. And I want to make sure if I even take 10 minutes of your time, that I'm giving you something that's worthwhile. So for me, that creates a natural level of fear in myself that I know how to overcome. Like I wear an extra shirt, or I'll make sure I drink enough water. I don't eat any spicy foods before I go on stage. I know all the things that will eventually impact me if I don't plan accordingly. So I think what makes the biggest difference between where I'm at in my speaking business and maybe someone that's brand new, it's just preparation and understanding yourself.
Yeah. Now, is that when you get like that nervous, really nervous when you start sweating, just when you're on like in a group setting, or how about like in a podcast one-on-one? I think
always.
Even
my own podcast, the LEO First podcast, if I'm recording at my house with my AC, with my lighting not even that bright, I'm still sweating. Now, I'm not like I'm not going to be sweating down my forehead like I'm eating spicy wings or something like that. No, I'm like, I have back sweat and eventually underarm sweat. I will have that even at home. It's just it's always for me. It's just, I know how my body reacts.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop me. Like, I mean, even if I was dripping sweat right now, we'd be having a podcast. Like, and I would be flowing.
Yeah.
But I know for me that's something how my body reacts. So I tell people once again, if you're a brand new speaker or a seasoned, part of getting better at is preparation, but also knowing what works and what doesn't work for you. I tell nobody to do like me. If wearing 2 shirts is going to make you hot, don't wear 2 shirts. But for me, I'm always going to wear an undershirt. Even like I said, even now, even in this nice room we're in, I'm going to wear an undershirt because I don't want you seeing this black shirt get sweat stains all of a sudden. Because you're like, why is he nervous? That's just how it is.
Yeah. So you guys see him start sweating. It feels good, so it's not really hot out here right now.
It's not at all.
So the next question I was going to ask you is about, you said you had a podcast. And what's the name of the podcast again?
The podcast is called the LEO First Podcast.
The LEO First Podcast.
Yes.
Okay. And all the information, I'm going to link that in the box so you guys go follow him. And go ahead, you guys do follow him. I've seen some of his material. It's very good. Very knowledgeable. It'll help you guys out. But how and why did you start your podcast?
Well, it's funny that you asked that. And I know we talked a little bit about the self-doubt you had with your podcast, and I had the same thing. So in 2019, I was like, you know what? My background's law enforcement.
Yeah.
At that point in 2019, I had already had 14 years in law enforcement, and I realized some of what people see when they see an officer, whether it's correctional officer, police officer, sheriff, FBI agent, whatever you want, U.S. Marshal, you don't see a person. And for me, being in law enforcement for 14 years and being in 3 different agencies at that time, I was like, you know what? I want to do something to highlight that person that's within that uniform. Because what people don't realize is when that person takes the uniform off, they have to go to HEB to buy their groceries. They're going to Exxon to buy their gas.
Yep.
They're going to the doctor's appointments. Their kids goes to one of these schools around here. But it's not always humanized that way. Because a lot of times when you see law enforcement of any nature, it's not always the most exciting thing you see. 9 times out of 10 is some kind of thing that in another state, usually that some officer said something or did something that was a violation of rights, and that's all you hear or see.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't realize that. Look, I'm throwing a number out there. There's 500,000 cops. I'm just throwing a number. I don't know how many. And you see one incident for that day. I want to say that was a good day then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, because you're always gonna have a bad apple everywhere, in any type of jobs. You know what I mean? So I think that's only natural that some people think that it's gonna be, oh, all cops are bad. But at the same time, media just projects those side.
Oh yeah, well
the
because
negative.
it's entertaining.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, fear. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you, especially when I was a street cop back when I was living in Florida, and I mean, what I would see in a normal day, some people wouldn't see in their whole lifetime when it came to other people's drama and just issues overall. Like I could start a day off by going to a traffic crash where if somebody gets in a crash in their life, it's kind of traumatic to them, right? Because now they have to deal with the insurance. If there's any injuries, now they're going to the doctor. Well, that might be one of my calls for the day. Next thing you know, I get on a traffic stop. The person runs. I get in a fight with the person. Now I got to take them to jail. That's just another call. That's all in the same day. Then I have to go to a domestic violence call on my third call of the day. Mind you, this is only the half of my day so far. And a lot of the days of a police officer are structured that way. And I think, well, I know that people don't recognize that because once again, they're only seeing what the media hypes. I was like, okay, this one person's a bad apple. And don't get me wrong, there are bad apples in every industry.
Yeah, every industry. Yeah.
Every industry has a knucklehead or someone that's lazy or someone that just is violating whatever they're not supposed to be violating.
Yeah.
And I tell people, they're like, well, a cop should be held to a higher standard. And I agree.
Yeah.
But shouldn't we all?
Yeah. Everybody should.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people they overrate one position but undervalue what they need to do in society. And for me, when I was looking at that, the whole landscape, nobody told me to do it. I was just in the industry. I was like, you know what? I want to make this podcast called the LEO First Podcast, which is, I break it down because LEO stands for Law Enforcement Officer. That's in the industry. That's our acronym.
Oh,
that's how we make it. So if you ever see a law enforcement officer say LEO or Leo, they're not saying Leo like the zodiac sign.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like, this guy's into CDO.
But I am a Leo though. My birthday's July 30th. So if anybody wants to send me a gift on July 30th, every year it's July 30th, same time every year, same day. But literally, so the LEO First Podcast is Law Enforcement Officer First Podcast. That's how it's designed. But I don't want a really long title, kind of like how you have your acronym. I didn't want a whole bunch of words because people get lost.
Yeah,
it's just we're a very short attention span society, myself included. And I was like, you know what? I want to create a platform to where law enforcement officers could just talk about themselves in any kind of manner. And over my last, let's say, 70 published episodes, it's been amazing. And like I said, I started in 2019. Let me go back to that. And once again, editing is hard. Podcasting is hard. So after about the first 10 episodes, I was like, forget this. This is too much time editing. Not getting people respond back to my guest requests. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, I got to set up a studio at home. And I didn't even have a nice setup. I just had a microphone. And at the time I had a Zoom account and I was editing off of some random software, like iMovie or something like that. Like I wouldn't even and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I just got burned out after about 10 episodes. And I took about a 3-year window off. So from about 2020 to 2023, I didn't record any episodes. But during that time frame, I really started to increase my speaking business. And when I started to do that, people started saying, hey, don't you have a podcast? And I saw other people doing podcasts that I was like, you know what? I need to get mine back in service. And in May of 2023, I was like, you know what? I'm jumping back into it. So from May 2023 up into December of 24, I have recorded, I'm not going to say edited because I can say it's recorded because editing, I haven't edited all of them yet. I want to say I've recorded, about 60 episodes since that time. And you find out, sometimes podcasts come in bulk. And the fact that I do it anywhere and I have any guests on from any part of the country or international, it's nonstop. There's been days where I've had 3 podcast episodes. Now, mind you, I'm doing it from home, so it's a little bit different. In a sense of my guests don't have to come to my home or they don't have to come to my place of business. So that has allowed me to meet so many people, understand what people are going through, whether it's single males, that's law enforcement officers, married women, divorced, widowed, generational police officers, generational correctional officers, people in other countries. I've even done my podcast in other countries.
I seen that one. You did one Siberia or
Serbia. Yes. Oh man, that was so cool. I actually met the person because I knew I was going to Serbia on a random vacation. Like it was literally a vacation. And I was like, you know what? Let me look at LinkedIn. Let's see who in Serbia is there. So I kind of did the cold outreach and I typed police officer Serbia in LinkedIn. And then one of the guys came up and I was like, hey man, I'm coming to Serbia in September. I'd love to have you on my podcast. And he was like, okay. And I was like, oh, well, that was kind of easy. I get to Serbia, man. They treat me so amazing. They treated me so amazing over there. It was an experience that I know I'm never going to forget. And part of the reason why I had that experience was because of the podcast.
Yeah.
And it showed me that, once again, law enforcement officers, which he is and continues to be, we all have stuff we're going off. We're all people. We're all amazing. And that's something that I wanted to highlight in that podcast. But it also allowed me to work on communication. It allowed me to work on marketing. It allowed me to work on editing. All the things that business owners want to get to. Like, if you want to communicate as a business owner, like some of the groups around, like the business groups, like business networking and the different Rotary clubs and the different Chamber of Commerces, communication is important. And podcasting is what helped me, as you talked about, helped me kind of lose some of that stage fright, because I was able to work out my kinks on this, because this is pretty much live, so to speak. Now, obviously, we can run an IG live or a Facebook live, YouTube live, but a lot of this you won't edit out, which is good.
Yeah.
And people, that's the thing. I tell people about podcasts. Sometimes you don't want to edit out because that's what makes it more raw.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I did one with I was talking to a girl, and then she ended up crying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
During the podcast. You know what I mean? Like, so I kind of then we started over. I went ahead and cut what she was crying with, because I didn't want to. I don't know. I just felt like I didn't know she wanted that out, so I was like, I went ahead and just cut it out, just because I didn't know she would want that out there.
I would say depends on what you always have to look at what your guest is pushing for or what they're looking at, but people connect with emotion.
Yeah.
Mind you, anybody watching, law enforcement officers, our background, we're very tough. We're very like the color of this table would, like, that's how we appear emotionally a lot of times. But as a speaker, as a communicator, as a leader, what I learned is that vulnerability is what connects me to people even better. And if the guest is good with it ever in the future, that makes some of the best podcasts, because that's real.
Yeah.
That's the real side of this interaction we're having, because it's real people talking about real things. So whatever got her to that point, and if she was comfortable with it, like, hey, show that, because there's one of your viewers right now that will connect with whatever she had going on. And that's where you build the strength of what you're doing. And it creates fans, it creates audience, it creates people that really want to listen and gravitate to what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good tip for me. Next time I'll just
well, ask the person though. Say, hey, I know this is emotional for you, but is it okay if I keep it? You got to ask them. But you'd be surprised. Like I said, once I started incorporating like real life personal stories into my presentations, it really allowed me to connect even more with the audience than before. I had people coming up to me crying like, hey, I really connected with your story, man. Thank you for sharing it. Men and women of all ages. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just like one of those situations where it was just one or two people or just women or just men. No, it's all over the place. But it was me being real. And that's what people want. They want genuine, real conversations.
Yeah. I think everybody does, especially at the time nowadays. Everybody's just kind of losing contact because of social media. They say, well, we're more connected than ever, but we're really not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know it's a distance. I know, and I make sure, like with my son and stuff, that I pull him away from the phone. I make sure I got to pull myself away from the phone too, because I know we try to blame the younger generations, but they're only on this because we built it for them.
Yeah, and I mean, also we're just human, we just get distracted so easily. Because I don't know if you ever heard a story that I think they had given some phones to some tribe. I forgot exactly which tribe or where, and then all of a sudden they had a Wi-Fi connection or whatever somehow. I don't know how. And they got stuck in watching porn all day.
Oh my God! But it's real. Hey,
that's how we are. As human beings. What I mean?
I mean, it's a lot of us are visual people.
Yeah.
Visual. That like if you look at statistics, like learning styles, most people are visual learners. So social media does that a lot. It visually stimulates our minds. So that's not surprising.
Yeah, and it depends what kind of content you're taking in too. I mean, it could be good content. It's stuff that you actually learn or makes you actually think. So
like this podcast, yes.
Yeah, like this one.
Yes.
But what kind of struggles have you faced? You think like in starting another podcast or the keynotes or your law enforcement? I
mean, I think most of everybody's struggle starts before any of that. And I say that to say is what I realize and what I've been blessed with up to this point is to realize that my keynote speaking has allowed me to recognize struggles that I had hidden away for so long. Like, for example, growing up homeless, growing up in poverty, growing up with a mother that suffered from depression, suicidal attempts from her. A lot of that I hid away for years, if not, I don't want to say decades, but at least 10 to 15 years, because I don't want to show weakness. I don't want to show vulnerability, because even today, men are looked at as this person that has to be strong all the time. And you should be. As a leader, you should be strong.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we don't need help.
Yeah.
So there's always that battle between, when do I show vulnerability as a man? When do I show that I'm just a strong like vessel? So for me, my struggles came early on, and I believe some of that kept me from being further in my life, because I didn't want to disappoint myself, because I didn't know just how to get there. So for example, growing up homeless, I was like, you know what? Once I got myself a job making 40 to 50 grand a year, I was good with that. I didn't realize how much more money was out there, how much more success. And because of that struggle limited my mind. I was like, hey, this is all I need. My bills are paid. I can eat. I have a car that runs. I'm not saying a car that's great, but a car that runs at that time. And those struggles carried on into my adult years. Now, I always had this natural level of effort and hustle because I was born and raised in Miami, but I always had self-limiting beliefs that kept me from doing even more. Nowadays, there's really not anything I won't do, but it took time. And I just remember just even starting a business, I was like, I'm never going to be successful. I'm never going to be good at this. My mother was a blue-collar worker. My father was a blue-collar worker. Everybody in my family was some type of like blue-collar worker or government, and their ability to achieve more than six figures in a year just wasn't very probable in my mind. And it took me to start recognizing that, no, if somebody can do it, I can probably do it. Now, I can't probably be an astronaut. I understand that. Mm-hmm. I probably can't dunk a basketball. I could probably still grab the rim at 5'10" at 39, but I'm probably never going to be LeBron James. But there's things that's within my powers and my control that I can do. And just some of those struggles really shaped me to where I was like, you know what? Don't allow homelessness. Don't allow mental illness in your family. Don't allow a divorce. Don't allow people saying you're not good enough. Don't allow that to stop me, because if I stop pushing, if I stop growing, if I stop developing, who else isn't going to grow? Once again, you asked me who I was early on in the podcast, and I said a son, a father, and a brother, because when I don't grow, they don't grow. Not saying that they're not going to grow on their own, but there are certain things that, as Michael Laidler, I know I personally have to do to help set the right tone for them, because I know they're watching me. And I tell anybody, even without a leadership title, you're still a leader. There's somebody watching. Like, let's say this podcast. There's somebody watching, seeing how you handle this podcast right now, because they're wondering, man, can I do it? Can I do what he's doing? And every video, every time you put out a reel, that's creating a level of success for that next person. So for me, those struggles came in all parts of my life. But as I've become stronger mentally, I'm like, you know what? Let me figure out how to use these struggles. Let's figure out how to use these failures to my advantage to just benefit somebody.
Yeah. And then also, too, is I want to say that just because a person is a guy, you know, especially because just because they may look like they're strong doesn't mean they're facing a lot of things within themselves, you know, a lot of demons.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think every that's the interesting part about being a man, no matter if you have kids or not, or you're in a relationship or whatever. You just have an inherent, I think most men, obviously me being a man, that's the only gender I can talk about. We all carry a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're designed to do. But that doesn't mean we have to do it by ourselves. And I think that's the side that we really struggle with, is that we say, okay, although we're having 10 different things that are pushing against our brain, we need to do it by ourselves. And I think that's when you get past that level of realizing that you don't have to do it alone. I think that's where you really see that growth, and you really see that true success come from yourself internally, and then it eventually gets externally to everybody else.
Yeah. And then also, if you're like just single as a man, you might have it just a little tad easier. But if you're a man with a wife and kids, it makes it, you know, a lot more harder right there.
Oh yeah, I can tell you. I mean, I love me some women, boy, but they stress me out. I ain't gonna lie. But I like coming home here and there, and it's real quiet. And I mean, even when my son's there, I mean, he's kind of quiet. He's 11 now, but sometimes I'm like, oh, did you eat? Did you brush your teeth? I mean, what, did you close the door back? And it's just it's a different level of stress, but it's good. But I mean, I enjoyed being in all those circumstances, but it is different.
Yeah, you better enjoy that. You say he's 11, but once he turns like my son, he's already 20 when I so. He's just at that stage where he has a lot of things going on for his life, you know what I'm saying? And I don't want to bug him. Hey, so you're gonna come over? You can come visit or whatever. Because I always try to stay connected to my son, you know. Even though when I moved to Birmingham, I would call him all the time just to see how he was doing and stuff like that. But once they grow older, they're gonna start doing their own thing. You're gonna miss it, you know.
Oh no, that's why. Hey, I cherish every moment, and he's my only child, and I do cherish every single thing, every single moment, every single time I have with him.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any like crazy or funny stories you could share with us? I imagine you have a lot because you've been traveling a lot, and then you also been a cop too. So I could imagine.
I'm gonna tell you a funny story that happened to me early this year. I am a foodie. I love to travel, and I will try most foods at least once because I don't know. I just like to try different foods. I like to try different things. And back in March of 2024, I took a trip to Korea. South Korea, not North Korea. Right? Yeah. We ain't going to we ain't going to North Korea. I can tell you that.
Probably wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, but it's actually, if you look at the state advisories, it will literally tell you, like, and this is the government website. They say if you go to North Korea, don't quote me, but I want to say it almost says this. It says if you go to North Korea, we're not coming to get you. You are going at your own risk.
Oh wow!
Like they're telling you. They said they will even say you better make plans with your family and let them know you're going there because we're not coming to help you.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, I didn't go to North Korea.
Yeah.
So I went to South Korea. I went to Seoul, and being a foodie, I told myself, you know what? I like to try different things. We get to this restaurant, and I'm looking at the menu, and they have all types of stuff. I mean, snail, lobster, crab, random stuff. I mean, all stuff that I eat.
I want to try snail.
I mean, I haven't. I don't think I have. I don't know. People say caviar or snail or something like that.
Caviar? No, I think it's fish eggs. Caviar?
I mean, I think I've had that. I don't know. But I would try it at least. I don't mind. So I'm looking through the menu, and I'm like, okay, cool. Let's see what's on here. And I see something that says live octopus. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know, in the States, when you hear something that's live, it's usually like means fresh. Like that's usually what I correlate. I don't correlate live with anything else besides fresh. Like, hey, you know, they must have just caught it. Like, well, I guess if it's in Beaumont, I mean, I guess they could just caught it in the Gulf. Depends on what kind of fish it is or what kind of seafood. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, you know what? Maybe they just caught it. So I ordered this live octopus, just all excited. And my friend, she's with me, and she's like, she just kind of like smiling. I'm like, why is she smiling? I'm like, she's on one. I don't know what she's doing. Like 5 minutes later, they come out, and the waitress comes out with this plate. And as she's coming out, I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, her hand's a little shaky. Her hand wasn't shaky. What it was when they brought the plate out, they actually brought out live octopus.
Wow.
In little pieces, and they were moving. It wasn't her hand moving the plate. They were alive. Because when they say live anything in South Korea, they mean live anything. I get this plate, and it has like 15 little pieces of octopus moving on it. And I'm looking like, I think I actually ordered live octopus. Like, I know that's what it says. And I told him that. And everybody was looking at me, and they're like, okay, cool. So for me, if I order something, and because me being a foodie, I'm going to at least try it. I take a deep breath. I get like the metal chopsticks they have. And they have like some kind of little dipping sauce. I ain't even mess with that dipping sauce. Like some yellow sauce. So I pick up my chopsticks. I go to grab one of these octopus, and it starts to fight me back. It won't get on the chopstick. Oh. I pick it up, it jumps off. I'm like, oh crap!
But is it octopus tentacles that are cut in section, or is it?
It's cut in section, yeah. But a whole bunch of them, yeah. It's like so they're all moving in different directions.
Yeah,
like
but they could feel it and move, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then my friend, she was like, "Hey, make sure when you eat it, you chew it completely before you swallow." And I was like, oh. okay. So I still got my tongs in my hand. I'm trying to get it because now I guess the tentacle, because it's on like a porcelain plate, and then stuck itself to the plate. So now I'm fighting with this thing, and I'm like, I've never had my food fight back before. Like, yeah, even crawfish. I mean, crawfish don't fight back. It might pinch you when you're trying to break the shell, but not octopus. Like this thing was literally. I was like, okay, so I finally get one piece off, and I pick it up, and it's still moving on the tongue, or excuse me, not the tongue, the chopsticks, and I'm like, oh gosh, well, this is what I signed up for. So I take a bite of it, and when I bite into it, it's still moving around in my mouth. And I'm like, I was not ready for all this. So I chew it, and I keep chewing it because now I'm nervous because she's like, hey, don't let it, because I'm thinking, okay, if I swallow this thing without chewing it, it's going to be moving in my stomach, and I'm going to have what they call a tapeworm, or the concept, because that really will be that. So I chew it, and I swallowed, no issues. I ate about 4 more pieces, about total of 5. And at that point, I was like, I can't do no more. I cannot eat any more of this live octopus. So she ate like 1 or 2 pieces just because she was like, she's eaten it before, I guess. I don't know. And I was like, I got my take. So when it comes to a funny story and something that I didn't see coming, that live octopus always comes up because I'm like, if I ever go back to South Korea, which I will in a couple of years, I don't know when, I know not to order anything live. You know, I'm probably not going to order anything live from that part of the world.
Okay.
Ever. And ever.
Asian.
Yeah, any Asian, because I actually I'm going to Thailand and the Philippines next month, and I already know if it says live, I know what that means. I don't care what they do to it. If it's I just can't. But when it comes to something that's funny, that was probably one of the funnier stories that I had recently, especially when it comes to like to travel.
Yeah. Now here's a big question everybody asking: how did live octopus taste? Like chicken?
No, because it wasn't fried. It was raw. So like the things why things taste like chicken usually because they're fried. Everything pretty much tastes the same thing fried. There's some differences in consistencies in some food, but most things taste exactly the same.
Yeah.
When it comes if they're fried. No, this was raw. This was like live. I don't even know if they put any seasoning. I don't know what they did, but it wasn't that. I think that's why I didn't, because I'm not consistency doesn't bother me, but I think because it wasn't like really tasty, I didn't really like it. Like it didn't taste bad.
Yeah.
It didn't taste bad at all.
Was it like oysters or something like that? Or?
I actually like oysters.
I like oysters.
I like oysters. It wasn't like oysters. I guess it was kind of gooey like oysters, but it just didn't have a lot of flavor. That's why I was like, if I'm gonna sit here and fight with this and have to worry about chewing like 32 times, then I at least want it to taste tasty.
Well, that's what they gave you that sauce, but you didn't want the sauce.
I tried a little bit. It wasn't that. It wasn't. I tried it with some other. It was. I don't know what it was.
The sauce wasn't good either?
Nah, it was almost like a olive oil type sauce or something. It wasn't like a thick like mayo base or nothing like that. It wasn't like stuff you put on a crawfish. It wasn't that kind of sauce. It was just like some kind of oil base. And it just that didn't really add anything to it. So I was just like, forget this.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the other questions I always like to ask my guests is like, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I would say, one thing that I have really been building is my speaking business. And one thing I've been telling myself that I need to do, which is only on me, is get more involved here in the Golden Triangle area. And I can see in 5 years having more impact here in this area. And I've been living here now since 2018. So I'm not from Beaumont. I'm not from the Golden Triangle area. Oh. But
where are you from then?
I'm from Miami, Florida originally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what that's. And I know I didn't bring that up because I wasn't even thinking about that part. But I mean, I've lived there. I mean, I've lived in Louisiana. I've lived in Laredo, Texas. I've lived in the Tallahassee area of Florida. I lived in the Tampa area of Florida. But Beaumont, I really like Beaumont. And there's a lot of good companies, a lot of good people here. And one of my goals in the next 5 years is to create more opportunities to develop and build people here locally. Because a lot of my speaking business, all of my speaking business is out of town. It's either in Houston or, let's see, some of the places I went this year in the States. Let me see, where did I go? I've been to Alabama a few times, Missouri a few times, Colorado, Illinois. I mean, next month I'm going back to Alabama. I'm going to Virginia. But I want to take some of those opportunities to impact others and do it here. So for me, when it comes from a business standpoint, it's growing my business to where I could find myself doing something on a Tuesday in Port Arthur, on a Thursday doing something in Groves, maybe on Friday doing something in Lumberton, because I want to impact the areas that are around us.
Yeah, and this place is growing a lot, especially with all the freeways construction, just because they know they project the growth There's all the refineries that's open up. So they have Golden Pass. They're working on that right now. Port Arthur LNG as well too, and this other one on 69. I don't know what exactly they're building over there. Right past the 5 Point.
Yeah,
So it's a refinery.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people coming in. So I'm sure that a lot of business could be opened up in the future.
Oh yeah. And I mean, and that's just on business side. Family wise, my son will be a junior in high school, if not a senior. I just have to calculate that. He's in 6th grade now. So I want to see where he's at. I want to move my mom down here. She's in Indianapolis right now. So next year I'll probably buy her a house out in Houston where my sister's at.
Everybody thinking, why he lived in Miami, come to Southeast Texas? Oh, what's wrong with him?
So what people don't understand is when you've lived several places, you understand what you need and what you don't need.
Yeah, and that's what I tell a lot of people. You need to travel just to see what you like. When I first moved from the States, I'm from El Salvador. So when we first moved, I was like 6, 7 years old. We moved to San Francisco, stayed there for a few years, 6, 7 years there, then came down here. Then, I lived here for like 20, 25 years. But then from there, I moved to Alabama, Birmingham for a couple of years for work. And that was like one of the best experiences right there. And I had jobs that I travel all the time. So I got to see the whole country pretty much.
Yeah, and that's important. And actually, I went to San Salvador earlier this year. So when you said El Salvador, actually, that was my second time going to San Salvador. I went back in 22 as well.
Yeah. In April was my first time back in 20 years, just because I knew how bad it was. But then the new president, Bukele, he changed everything.
Yes, when I went back in, was it February or March? I have to ask my buddy. When we went, everybody was so happy. They were like, no, the new president came in, and I started looking up articles and stuff, and it was like, no, whatever he did, it went from the worst when it came to violence to I think the best. So whatever he did was definitely a big thing. But traveling and just being in different areas, what I realize is that an area like Beaumont is a gold mine because it has everything you need. Now, obviously, Houston has everything you want.
Yeah.
And if you want to go, just go drive 90 minutes to 2 hours. I mean, get a hotel there. It's not that bad. I mean, a lot of people don't have those options.
Yeah. But then, in Houston, you got all that traffic too.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you don't want to deal with all that. I don't want to deal with that all the time.
You know what I like? I tell people I save money here in this area. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, let's say it's a Tuesday night. If I get bored, there's not a lot of options here to have fun. In a sense of, you have places like 5 Under or Top Golf. I forgot what it's 5 Under. It's whatever's on College. You have like a bowling alley. You may have a club here and there, but there's not like 50 things to do. You live in a place like Houston.
Oh yeah, too much options.
Too many options. You're just like you're looking like, man, I want to go. And then as a guy, since we spend a lot of the money, or we usually front the cost of things, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go spend $50 here or $100 there. Next thing you know, you're spending $2,000 on extracurriculars throughout the month because you live in Houston versus Beaumont. And being from Miami, I understood that when you have too many options, you will break yourself just because of the options. So for me, I love this area because it minimizes my options, but it allows me to just enjoy where I'm at. And I know people say, well, you could do that in Houston, but when you have options, sometimes you're going to take them. You're like, you know what? I feel like eating live octopus. Maybe I can go to this Korean spot that's over in Katy, or maybe I can go get some Cuban food that's on the southeast side in Pearland or something like that. Beaumont, whatever's here is here.
Yeah.
Now, there's some good places around here, but a lot of places close at 7 or 8. So if you get hungry at 9 o'clock, you're just going to be hungry at 9 o'clock. Yeah. You better go to H-E-B and go to their pre-made food section and grab yourself something. But
which is not bad.
Which is not bad. I know, but that's what I'm saying. But that's going to be a lot better than you going somewhere in Houston where by the end of the night, you're up to $100 because by the time you had a food, you're going to probably say, oh, I might have a drink. You know what? I might have somebody join me. Now that we have a few drinks, maybe we have an appetizer. Now you're at $100.
Yep.
Here, you're going to get maybe 5 places at the most, maybe J.W. Wilson's or J. Patty or J. Wilson's or J.W. Patty. You might have those, but even they close at like 9 or 10. That's more in the Beaumont area. But you're going to be able to focus on yourself more in an area like this, which is good.
Mm-hmm. And since you're doing podcasts and you like to interview and all that, who would you want to interview? Who's like would be your favorite interviewer, you think?
I think, and I'm a big sports guy, and I love people that are very cerebral. And actually, I have 2 people that I think are very intelligent. I just want to hear them speak. It would probably be Tom Brady or LeBron James. And I say that because, one, not because they're arguably both the GOATs in their industry, but the sustainability of what they've done. Like, it's easy for anybody to be super in any industry for 4 or 5 years, but doing it for 20 plus years at the highest level.
Especially Tom Brady.
Yeah, I know, but that's and that's I tell people, they're like, well, I say whatever you say about them, it's sustainability. If you're a business owner, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You're looking for sustainability. You're not just looking for having one big contract. You want to have contracts for the entire for 20 or 30 years. So to me, when I look at guys like that and guys that even haven't taken the biggest contracts that they could have taken because they had other business stuff going on. So I would want to pick their brains to kind of see how their mind works, how they keep their body in shape, how they keep their mind in shape. Because I'm like, how do you get to that point of sustaining yourself and not being involved in any real controversy? Mm-hmm. Staying out of the light. They're in the light, but you never hear any real negative stories about them. Obviously, we try to create narratives about people, but those two, I don't hear anything negative, not something that's going to put them in jail or find them in somebody's indictment information.
Mm-hmm. You know who I would like to interview? Who would be my top guest that I would like to? It'll be Bukele. Just because how he just transformed that country from, the number one murder capital place in North America, or the Americas, to the safest, literally the safest right now.
That takes a lot of leadership. That takes a lot of vision.
Exactly.
And it takes a lot of, and you're right. And when it comes to opposition, because you're going to do something that nobody else wants to do, and you have to literally put your life on the line to do that.
Yeah.
Because you're taking away a lot of people that's been making a lot of money, and when you start taking people's money away, at least a certain demographic of people that don't mind using violence, it takes a lot for you to do that. So that makes sense.
And he got a lot of pushback even from his own the congressman or whatever they have over there. So that was crazy. But yeah, he'll be my top guest. I would love to interview. Who knows? You guys can help me out. Like, comment, subscribe. All right, guys. Push me out there.
Just share. If you know him by any chance, or if you know his social media person, just say, hey, we got a podcast. We think you should be on this one.
Yeah. So any last words for the audience?
I always think about different last words to give people, and I always try to think about the platform I'm on. And for this particular one, since we're talking about like a lot of entrepreneurs, business, and things you can do, is hustle. Hustle every single day. And when I say hustle, I'm not saying do anything illegal. I'm saying go out there and give everything you have for whatever you're trying to pursue. If you're trying to create a startup for laundry, do everything you can. Learn all the sciences behind laundry. Learn what other people are doing. If you're trying to be a real estate agent, learn what the best real estate agents do. If you're trying to have a podcast, learn what the best podcast hosts are doing. But hustle each and every day, because if you don't hustle for your business, especially as being an entrepreneur or a small business owner, your business will fail. Nobody is just going to pick your business up. Now, you can go work for any company and you can build up their business.
Yeah.
You can go hustle for them. But if you really want to have that true title of entrepreneur, you have to go hustle. And you have to understand the long nights is coming up, the money you're going to have to spend, the time you're going to have to give up from other activities like maybe social media or going out. Last weekend, Friday and Saturday, I was online doing things for business research, getting myself ready for Monday.
Yeah.
But I had an option. Either I can go out or I can work on my business. My business. That's why, like when people are like, oh, mind your business. Oh, I'm gonna mind my business because I have a business to mind. If you're an entrepreneur and you're watching, my number one thing is hustle, because if you're not hustling, somebody else will hustle harder than you.
That's a good tip right there. I would like to add on that. If you have a full-time job and want to become an entrepreneur, go ahead and start off with your entrepreneur on the side. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I do that now. Yeah. No, I've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot more time than what we realize.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize it. They're like, oh, I don't have enough time to do this.
It's an excuse.
Get off social media.
Yeah.
Get off of Netflix. You don't have to watch that next series. I know The Madness is good on Netflix right now. Don't watch it. Yeah. Take that hour or that 50 minutes that episode is and work on your business. Oh, I'm tired. Go to sleep. Yeah. When you wake up, work on your business. Well, I'm mentally defeated right now because of X, Y, and Z. Well, be defeated as long as you need to, but know that people like us are trying to hustle and try to get your clients.
Yeah.
Just know that. Whatever, especially if we're in the same industry. Like, I'm not bad-mouthing you or I'm not going to steal your clients, but I'm trying to get them on my roster. I'm not trying to blow anybody up, but they have to go to somebody. And just like, I mean, you look around here. I mean,
it's just like when you try and talk to a girl and she says, "Oh, I don't got no time." It's because she's not interested.
yeah, no, she don't value your time.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
no, literally. And I have gone through that with anybody, business, women, family. Oh, I don't have enough time. I understand completely.
Yep.
Then don't worry about it. I value my time. I will value yours. But one of the things that I don't want to do is waste my time.
Yeah.
So that's perfect.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming to the podcast.
Before we go, I want to give you something because I love to bring different things that I have going on, and I like to be a social proof kind of person. So, like I have my shirt that says "My failure is my fuel." I have one for you too.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. So everybody can see it. I know they can kind of see it already. They've been looking at it for the last almost 60 minutes, but that's going to be for you. And the reason why I believe that is so true for everything we do is because we all fail.
Yeah.
Right? We all fail at something.
And don't be sad about if you do fail. You know what I mean? Take it as a learning lessons too, right?
Correct. And one of the things in law enforcement and any high stress industry is that a lot of times we see failure and it ends up turning to things like suicide. It ends up turning to things like substance abuse, alcohol abuse, child abuse. And it's just because we're not realizing that those failures is just one step away from being more successful.
Yeah.
It's just literally one thing that we can do in order to get ourselves to what we need. You cannot get anywhere without having failure.
Also, they got something in the back.
Oh, yeah, it's my logo. Yes. Just Michael Laidler Unlimited.
There you go.
I try to have something on there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm definitely going to wear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I got one more thing for you.
All right.
I try to come with a couple of tools. And 2 years ago, I wrote a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge. And people see it, and I know they're like, oh, this must just be for law enforcement. No. This is about Michael Laidler's life.
Oh,
but because at the time when I wrote the book, I had 17 years in the industry, obviously it's going to be greatness beyond the badge, meaning greatness beyond the uniform. As I said, part of even my podcast is how do I highlight what's underneath that uniform? Same thing for if you're going to a job right now or you're in a business, what makes you special? That's what I talk about in here. And how do you get back your own self-awareness? How do you control your time? How do you look at failures as something that you can use towards benefiting yourself? So I wrote this book back in 2022 just to highlight that. But like I said, people look at it and say, oh, it's not. It's just Michael Laidler. A lot of my stories are law enforcement, but whatever industry you're in, most of your stories are going to come from that as well. Yeah. But I have personal stories in there. I will say that this particular presentation, which is also my book, it actually taught me about stuff when it came to things that I may have hidden away at the time. So that book actually helped me even get closer to my mother and my family because there were stories that I had hidden away because I didn't want to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then I wrote that book, and there's stories in there that I tell today that's not in that book that has helped me elevate myself. It's helped me to show that it's okay to have failures. It's okay to have nicks in your road. It's okay to slip. But, there's ways around it.
Yeah.
And there's somebody counting on you right now, as I said many times throughout the podcast, that wants to see you grow. So I wrote that. I wrote the book, but I also gave you a book. I signed it for you already.
Oh, yeah?
Right?
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, are you going to sign it for me? Oh, okay, I appreciate it.
See, you already got it. See, because I already knew. See, I told you, I plan. I try to, as an entrepreneur, as a person, as a hustler, I learned how to bring out different things. But yeah, the book has been out. Obviously, it's on Amazon. Anybody can find it. The shirts, I don't have on my website yet. So if anybody would ever want a shirt, they would just have to email me or contact me, text me, whatever. And I can, if they're in Beaumont, I can deliver it to them. If not, I've mailed shirts throughout the U.S. But this is this is 2024 and going forward is how do we recognize the failures we have and use them to propel ourselves into the future? Because I know that failure fuels growth.
Yeah. Well, I hope I become as great as you, especially your speaking ability. I'm like very jealous about that. But eventually I'll get there.
It's just it's practice and realizing what works and what doesn't work for you. I used to love hearing guys like pastors speak, like T.D. Jakes and like Keon Henderson out of Houston and what's the guy named Stephen Furtick. And I used to love hearing those guys speak. And sometimes I wish I could speak like them, but I was like, no, that's not me. What works for Michael Laidler, my style of speaking, my cadences, my ability to tell jokes, which isn't great, my pauses, my stuttering that I have when I have mid-sentence changes or I say random things, that's who I am, and that's fine. So part of being a better speaker is practicing what you do, but also recognizing what works for you. Just like me with the double shirts. I just know.
Yeah, like I told you, I have a hard time saying the word individual.
Yeah,
and that's it. Like, I'm just gonna change it to people.
Yeah, hey, but work. No, that's what I'm saying. So certain words, like certain things that I want to say, like there's a few words that I use still, and it's always a miracle when I can say them correctly because I will say them on stage in front of a lot of people, and then I laugh at myself if I say it wrong because I'm like, guys, I tried, but I can joke. I have no problem telling jokes on myself.
Yeah,
like I'm good at that. Like I realize that we're just people.
Yeah.
And that's part of even the book. Just, being self-aware, understanding that you have faults, but you also have strengths that you need to highlight. And that's what I want to help you do with the book.
Yeah. And I'm sure this book is going to help you navigate through your life, I guess, or my life. Once
Yeah.
I read it.
It's, I mean, it is a simple read. We're like, it's only 146 pages.
Yeah.
I was like, that's how many pages do you need?
Oh, you got a little.
I try to make it simple, man. I'm a very simple person.
Okay.
I wrote the book and I was just like, let me just push something out for people to have that. I want people to have resources. If I die tomorrow, I'm happy to have stuff like this because I know that if one person sees the book in Goodwill, they pick it up, it may help them. But if I never wrote it, then how can I help them even when I'm not around?
Yeah. All right, guys. So make sure you guys go to his website, get the book, and eventually he'll get the shirts on his website. Mm-hmm. You got other merchandise in there?
There's only two things I do now. I'm gonna do some hats at some point, but
okay.
I'll probably just do some hats with some MLU. I haven't designed those. Actually, I need to do that during this break.
Yeah. And if you want to get in his keynote, you know who to get. All right. Peace out, guys. Thank you.